Children have already spent 6 or 7 hours at school reading, writing and getting instruction, and on a sunny day like this the last thing they want to do is spend their evening sitting at the kitchen table writing out line after line and learning by rote. The value of homework is being called into question by various groups both here and abroad. Educationalists are not only saying too much homework is worthless, but are in fact labelling the traditional prescription of hours of after-school work as harmful. Yet, with such insights, why hasn't there been wholesale changes to the education system in Ireland? And in an ideal world, what alternatives are there to burying children and young adults under loads of assignments and essays? You can text us with your views on 087 7102 103 or just low call the show on 1850 333 444. But we're going to explore this issue a little further with Dr. Naoise O'Reilly from the Homework Club. Naoise, thank you very much for joining me.
Hello, good afternoon, how are you?
An afternoon to you as well. You're not exactly a fan of homework.
No, I started a national debate in this country last November when I said that I thought that homework should be banned and that it was a really worthless exercise for everybody involved. This came about for two reasons. One, because I set up my own educational centre 3 years ago and we approach it very differently. And like it says in the article in the Guardian today talking about the French system, we really feel that if people have learned effectively in the classroom, that they shouldn't have to go away and learn it off. So basically what we do is we teach people in 4 different ways. It's either auditory, visual, practical or kinesthetic. And basically what that means is that all of the lessons we do, whether you're trying to teach somebody of 5 how to read and write, or whether you're trying to teach a leading student biology, we make it accessible to all of the students in the classroom. And they're so involved and they really understand it and really relate to the topic, so they don't need to go away and learn it off. And so, and like it says in the article as well from French parents, what we're kind of seeing is that there's a lot of conflict at home because of homework, and it's actually destroying people's lives. And there's a great assumption as well that all parents can actually support their children and are able to do this homework, and quite often people are basically sent to me because their parents want someone else to mediate the situation.
Naoise, I'm sure some people who would be appalled at the idea of getting rid of homework might say, well look, the kids are at school from whatever 9 till 3 or half 3 depending on where it is, but once they get out of the school gates it probably goes straight out of their head, particularly on a day like today where they're probably looking out the classroom window the whole time, the sun, and that having a bit of homework, I suppose it just kind of reinforces what you've learned. What would you say to that?
Well, for a start, if the classroom is really engaging and they're really taking part in the process, they shouldn't be staring out the window at the sun. And preferably, in a lot of cases, I would think that the class should be outside in the sun as well, so that they're not sitting there looking at it, going out what's going on in the rest of the world. So the class really should relate to the students, and it should really be about now and then. And it doesn't go straight out of your head if you've really understood it and you've really found it interesting. Like the whole the bit about the Homework Club that I find really exciting about the building is that everybody loves coming to us, and they actually come to us after school. So it could be seen as a chore. And the reason I called it the Homework Club was because it was this perception of I didn't want anything extra for the students to do. So the students love being with us, and they love learning, but yet all of the students who come to us, the only thing they have in common is they're all doing very badly in school and they all hate school. So I think it's possible to create an environment where people really enjoy learning, and what homework does is it makes people hate learning for life. And on other shows that I've spoken on, parents have even, like adults, have texted in and said, I would have stayed in school if I hadn't had to do homework. That's the impact of it.
Naoise, can I just ask you, would the fact that children in Ireland get homework, could it actually mentally fatigue them in a way that I look at my own younger brother and sister and they seem to get the bones of 2 hours homework? So, you know, if say they're getting home and it's going on 4 o'clock, they've got 2 hours worth of homework and they're finishing by 6, then it's dinner time, and by the time that's all over, I know we've got a bit more daylight now thanks to the clocks going forward, but there's not really an opportunity for them to go out and, you know, be involved in kind of activities or playing football or whatever that, you know, is an important part of their development as well, that's also falling by the wayside.
Yes, and people don't really get a chance to find out what they're actually good at, and especially when you're in exam years like 3rd year and 6th year, and now approaching Easter, even talking to my own students, they're planning on locking themselves in their bedroom for the whole of Easter to study, when this is the first time of the year that we've actually had some good weather. They need to go out, they need to socialise, they need to meet people, they need to play sports, they need to be active, they need to be fit, they need to have a whole balanced life and a whole balanced mind. And the other argument I made about this when I talked about it in the press earlier this year is that we're teaching people bad habits for life. You know, you're teaching people for 12 years of their life to always take their work home and to constantly just do that and not do anything else. And when you want a balanced adult life, you want to go into your workplace, concentrate very effectively on your work for concise periods of time and do it very effectively, and then walk out and have a life and have a family and have friends and be fit and active and healthy in your body and do all of these things. And that's not what we're teaching children how to do.
Naoise, can I ask you about, I suppose, the approach our European neighbours are taking? You mentioned the situation in France where they're calling for a boycott of homework. In Finland, they've revamped their education system. But here in Ireland, we talk a lot about how great our education system is. Maybe it's not anymore. And we talk a lot about certain things like the way Irish is taught. It's an issue that's come up on this show before. And we all know there's a problem with the way it's taught, yet nothing ever happens. We talk about the rote learning approach to Leaving Cert. We know there's a problem there, yet nothing ever happens. You're mentioning the issue with homework. Do you actually think in Ireland, we talk about the problems, we know what they are, but we never do anything about them. So how likely is it that in Ireland there could be a situation where no homework will ever come about?
Well, I think I suppose when I set up my own school 3 years ago, I did something to change it, and so I have a project called the Homework Club now, and I actually have developed a new learning method from that called the Purple Learning Project, and we're starting to have a lot of interest. I'm starting to do workshops for people like Aspire, the Dyslexia Association. I'm doing a workshop for Aware.
Can you see something like that being brought into the actual Irish education system, being brought into primary schools?
Well, that's basically my plan, and it's not just for primary schools. It's across the board. I really feel that there's a lot of people out there. I always say that there's just as many lost teachers in the system as there is lost students. And when I started this debate before, nobody disagreed with me. The parents thought I was right in a lot of cases when I raised the arguments of why are their children doing homework. In a lot of cases, parents sort of saw that they expected it to be sort of prescribed, so that they had a benchmark of what was happening in the classroom, rather than sort of realizing that their own children needed to take responsibility for their own learning, and they needed to talk through them what they were doing. And the students always know how they're doing. The teachers kind of felt that they just had to set it because the parents expected it, or there was a policy in the school. And so by constantly raising these debates, raising these questions, it does change things. And I know from the students that we work with, when they go back to their school, like we had a story only last week of a student who was an A student in a particular subject, and she dropped to a D. And she did 6 weeks work with us for only 6 hours, 1 hour a week. We pointed out that she was a very visual learner, and her mother actually went into the parent-teacher meeting and raised this with the teacher, and the teacher went, actually, I'm a visual learner too, and I really learn if I can present everything visually. And I know that that teacher is now presenting that subject to all of the students in that class in a visual way because this was questioned.
Okay.
And so I really believe that when you start to ask the questions and you start to get people thinking, you can really change it. And it's just one teacher in their classroom at a time, and one parents who look at it differently, and the French parents debating it, and different groups like this, we do actually change it, because lots of people out there want it to change. They're just too afraid to.